I want to give a quick synopsis of this article, which talks about Liz Specht. She's a PhD of biology and an engineer, uh, pertaining the COVID. She is currently an associate director of science and technology at the Good Food Institute. On Friday, Dr. Specht, who holds a PhD from UCSD, posted a long series of tweets regarding the spread of coronavirus and the limitations of America's healthcare system. Dr. Specht is vitally concerned about COVID-19 and the supply of hospital beds and protective masks in the U.S. She calculates that by May 8th, all the hospital beds in the U.S. will be filled. That's just over 2 months from now. She further believes that America's low inventory of N95 and surgical masks required for healthcare workers will only make matters worse. As those tending to COVID-19 patients get sick, we may run out of healthcare workers as well as hospital beds. Now, look at that statement when you compare it to the director of the CDC telling people to stop buying masks and that they don't help you from getting this virus. So I always talk about contradictions in what people say and what they do. And the government and every entity within it is a perfect example of contradiction itself. They are liars. This may differentially impact Virginia, as Bacon's Rebellion, which is this article, guest commentator James C. Sherlock noted. Virginia has a shortage of docs and nurses. In addition, experience in Italy shows that up to 10% of cases which tested positive required mechanical ventilators as part of the treatment. Whether Virginia's very questionable COPN practices have held down the number of hospital beds and or mechanical ventilators is an open question. Meanwhile, as Jim Bacon notes, our state government's reaction to COVID-19 is somewhere between just trust us and what? Me worry? Very important note, Dr. Specht is a trained biologist who certainly holds some strong opinions as to the public health severity of COVID-19 in the United States. However, she is not an epidemiologist. Other equally expert people, including some epidemiologists, do not share her pessimism. Oh, but guess what? I do. People with discernment and people who can see contradictions all around can share her analysis. The crux of Specht's argument is that the number of coronavirus cases will double every 6 days. I have no idea whether Dr. Specht will be proven right or wrong on this account. I do know that if she is right, Virginia is in a world of trouble. Well, not only Virginia, but everywhere in the nation and around the world, in particular, third world countries. Now, I have been permanently deleted from Twitter for the past 2 years now because I like to tell the truth and confront, in particular, politicians about their lies. So I'm not able to log in here, but let's see if I can see what this woman posted. Let's see. I think most people aren't aware of the risk of systematic healthcare failure due to COVID-19 because they simply haven't run the numbers yet. Let's talk math. Let's conservatively assume that there are 2,000 current cases in the U.S. today, March 6th. This is about 8 times the number of confirmed lab-diagnosed cases. We know there is a substantial under DX due to lack of test kits. I'll address implications later of under overestimate. 2N. We can expect that we'll continue to see a doubling of cases every 6 days. This is a typical doubling time across several epidemiological studies. Here, I mean actual cases. Confirmed cases may appear to rise faster in the short term due to new test kits rollouts. We're looking at about 1 million U.S. cases by the end of April, 2 million by May 5th, and 4 million by May 11th, and so on. Exponentials are hard to grasp, but this is how they go. As the healthcare system begins to saturate under this caseload, it will become increasingly hard to detect, track, and contain new transmission chains. In absence of extreme interventions, this likely won't slow significantly until hitting 1% of susceptible population. What does a caseload of this size mean for healthcare systems? We'll examine just 2 factors: hospital beds and masks, among many, many other things that will be impacted. The U.S. has about 2.8 hospital beds per 1,000 people. With a population of 330 million, this is 1 million beds. At any given time, 65% of those beds are already occupied. That leaves about 330,000 beds available nationwide. Perhaps a bit fewer this time of year with regular flu season. Let's trust Italy's numbers and assume that about 10% of cases are serious enough to require hospitalization. Keep in mind that for many patients, hospitalization lasts for weeks. In other words, turnover will be very slow as beds will fill. By this estimate, by about May 8th, all open hospital beds in the U.S. will be filled. This says nothing, of course, about whether these beds are suitable for isolation of patients with a highly infectious virus. If we're wrong by a factor of 2 regarding the fraction of severe cases, that only changes the timeline of bed saturation by 6 days in either direction. If 20% of cases require hospitalization, we run out of beds by May 2nd. If only 5% of cases require it, we can make it until May 14th. 2.5% gets us to May 20th. This, of course, assumes that there is no uptick in demand for beds from other non-COVID-19 causes, which seems like a dubious assumption. As healthcare system becomes increasingly burdened, RX shortages, medications, etc., people with chronic conditions that are normally well managed may find themselves slipping into severe states of medical distress requiring intensive care and hospitalization. But let's ignore that for now. All right, so that's beds. Now masks. Feds say we have a national stockpile of 12 million N95 masks and 30 million surgical masks, which are not ideal, but better than nothing. There are about 18 million healthcare workers in the U.S. Let's assume only 6 million HCW healthcare workers are working on any given day. This is likely an underestimate as most people work most days of the week, but again, I'm playing conservative at every turn. As COVID-19 cases saturate virtually every state and county, which seems likely to happen any day now, it will soon be irresponsible for all healthcare workers not to wear a mask. These healthcare workers would burn through N95 stockpile in 2 days if each healthcare worker only got 1 mask per day. 1 per day would be neither sanitary nor pragmatic, though this is indeed what we saw in Wuhan, with healthcare workers collapsing on their shift and dehydration because they were trying to avoid changing their PPE suits as they cannot be reused. How quickly could we ramp up production of new masks? Not very fast at all. The vast majority are manufactured overseas, almost all in China. Even when manufactured here in U.S., the raw materials are predominantly from overseas, again, predominantly from China. Keep in mind that all countries globally will be going through the exact same crises and shortages simultaneously. We can't force trade in our favor. Now consider how these two factors, bed and mask shortages, compound each other's severity. Full hospitals plus few masks plus healthcare workers running around between beds without proper PPE, very bad mix. Healthcare workers are already getting infected even with access to full PPEs. In the face of PPE limitations, this severe, it's only a matter of time. Healthcare workers will start dropping from the workforce for weeks at a time, leading to a shortage of healthcare workers that then future compounds both issues above. We could go on and on about thousands of factors, number of ventilators, and even simple things like saline drip bags. You see where this is going. Importantly, I cannot stress enough, even if I'm wrong, even very wrong, about core assumptions like percentage of severe cases or current case number, it only changes the timeline by days or weeks. This is how exponential growth is an immunologically naive population works. Underserved panic does no one any good, but neither does ill-informed complacency. It's wrong to assuage, I haven't heard that word before, to the public by saying only 2% will die. People aren't adequately grasping the national and global systemic burden wrought by this swift moving of a disease. I am an engineer. This is what my mind does all day. I run back of the envelope calculations to try to estimate order of magnitude impacts. I've been a high alarm about this disease since January 19th after reading clinical indicators in the first papers emerging from Wuhan. Okay, I think we get the gist of this. So, this is something that I knew was coming because of the R naught of this. The R naught of this thing is incredible compared to other viruses. It is spreading very rapidly, and I don't believe that it's due to droplets. I believe it's aerositic. But we really can't tell yet, can we? Well, we're going to find out real soon what the true story is. And if what she's saying is true, this only isn't going to affect the elderly and people with morbidity issues who are younger. It's going to affect everyone who needs hospital care. And that brings in a whole other set of issues. Anyways, that's all I got. God bless. Have a good day.